Alright, so this is 17th week, and voice is getting deeper, yeah, man, it's definitely become a little noticeable, um, I feel like I do get a little more meatier, but I'm not really sure. So, yeah, I can't really say what changes are really going on. In classes, like, I'm really in passing, like, in classes, like, people who have never met me before, like, they, I don't know, they think there's something weird with my voice going on or something. Something weird going on with my voice, but, I'm passing as a guy. So far, no one called me a girl, except for one time when Carl actually called me a girl. A girl on the first day of class, and I corrected him. Actually, I was ready to go up and yell at him. And that was my teacher. So, I figured for this one, I promised I'd do an art theme one. I'll do transgender history, or well, more like the history of transgenders. Well, more like LGBT, because like unless we have actual documentation saying like they're transgender, we can't really say because a lot of transgenders get labeled as gay or lesbian. Like, there's a lot of lesbian groups that like coin Brand and Tina as being a lesbian because they never went for surgery or anything. It's like, no, it's like we're still trying to fix this shit, and it's kind of hard because like says like they'll label someone who's transgender as someone being gay or lesbian. I'm going off a timeline, and like I'll post it underneath the link so people can also check it out. Let's see here. So it's like, I'm not sure if I'm gonna get to 19th century. Let's see if I do. I'm hoping to get to 19th century because I feel like there's two very important people I feel like every transgender should know, and I'm very surprised how little other transgenders know of history, especially transgender history. Okay, so I need to stop ranting and get going because there's a lot of information. So, we're starting with ancient Egypt. Ancient Egypt had the very first recorded, like this is the first recorded, like, female pharaoh, which is Hepatitis. I'm probably saying her name completely wrong. Hepatitis. I do have a speech impediment, so please excuse that. So it's Hepatitis. Hepatitis. Yeah. Very first female ruler. She ruled from, well, not ruled. She was born. No, yeah, she ruled. She ruled for 2 decades, from 1479 to 1458 BC, and she is the one that's considered to create the hybrid gender, like, because like the carvers actually had to find a way to make it look like she was female but male at the same time. So here we have the very first like intersex, like, sculpting coming in history. So Hepatitis was like, she wore the male clothing, she wore the traditional male beard, the hat. She did the full like ruler thing by the full thing like by three. She did complete like 180. Well, Nepetitis. I can't talk. Well, Nepetitis. Yeah, she's more popular than Hepatitis. Well, Nepetitis is like, yeah, she was ruler. She was equal to her husband, but like, she's more of a feminist than anything else because she still wore her female clothing, but she just like went out there and did whatever the guys did. So I'm like, she's a feminist. Hepatitis is the one that's cross-dressing. So next one is the Roman Emperor. Oh my god, these freaking names. um, he lived from 204 to 22. I'm guessing might be BC. I think it might be BC. Yeah. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's BC because I've done a little bit of research on him. His name is, I'm trying to figure out how to say his name. Is Caligula Caligula Igalabas. He's a transgender female. It is actually rumored that he might have actually gone for surgery. Back in ancient Roman times, they actually had cosmetic surgeries. Like, you could get your calves done, your calves, your legs, your butt, your breasts. Like, there was actual legit surgeries back then. It's rumored that he went for it, but there's no proof if he actually went for it. He actually created a reward for any doctor who could change him and make him into an actual female, which was never collected. He actually was considered the second worst ruler in Rome, and the soldiers actually dragged him off and killed him at the age of 18 because he was that bad. So like I'm going like you should have been more of a feminist than worrying about what your makeup looks like. So yeah. The next one. The next one on the list is actually King Henry III, which is we're kind of doing a big jump here because like I don't have much information between the two time periods. I do have a lot of information on people on transgender and stuff from this time period, but we're going to focus on people rather than I'll talk about terms later because I don't know a lot of time for that. It's actually 1518 with no, is it 1518? No, it's 1577 with King Henry III. Um, King Henry III. He frequently cross-dressed as a woman and was referred to as Your Majesty by his own court when he was cross-dressing. So here we have a ruler who's cross-dressing. And like even when he dressed in male clothing, it was considered extremely flamboyant, even for 16th century standards. So here we have a cross-dresser, maybe a drag queen, or a really gay man. Next one is actually 1654. 1654 is Queen Christina of Sweden. She's actually considered bisexual, but still there's no proof. She would throw on male clothing, and she had a male name, and it was like Count Donald. Actually, now I kind of see where Italia got the idea to make. It's not Sweden. It's the country next to Sweden, and like it's considered like Sweden's sister into like basically a crossdresser. I see where it came from now. If anyone actually watches Italia. So yeah, so we have a cross-dressing queen. And let's see here, after the queen, it's 1673. Alright, 1673, we got French explorers, Louis, looks like his name should be Violet, but it's a Bolette, and Jacob Marquette, comes into contact with the Illinois Indians in 1673. And there's actually part of the Illinois culture is that there is actually a section of men where they cross-dress and act the roles of women. Like they do the social women roles. They coined the terms for these men as being ecotas, and like this is what's like the Illinois like term, while the French is called birdax. I think I prefer the equineta term. Let's see here. In 1676 is when the term cross-dressing actually came into the books. It was actually like it's considered like the first time it was actually written down in testimony when a transgender female attended the papal ball in female dress, and the term came around then. In 1700s, molly houses were coming around. Molly houses is actually an English thing where like a lot of the gay community would meet up, and it was actually a place where a lot of cross-dressing females would go. So you like have an entire community where it's going into these things called molly houses to cross-dress, and like it's believed that this is where like the gay culture came in and stuff. So unfortunately, we do have kind of a culture thing going on, but this is where it's considered where it might have started. Let's see here. Oh, Charles E. Bond. Well, this is his male name, and his female name is Chevalier. Chevalier. I thought French names were supposed to be very pretty. Well, this is a French person, famous French person. He's a spy, an ambassador. He actually was spying in Russia and stuff. He dressed half his life as a female. And in 1777 is when he officially permanently dressed as a female. To that point, like he was going back and forth. He was a spy and shit. Actually, being a cross-dresser probably comes in really handy if you're a spy, because then you can like be anywhere, really. Okay, so let's see, that was 1977. Oh, 1950. 1950. 1750. Basically, what was in the Nelson Navy? And in the Nelson Navy, a bunch of transgender male transvestites, like, joined. Like, they joined. They got discovered, unfortunately, but they were not dishonored. They were not punished. They were let go. And actually, became celebrities. Like, oh my god, we have a bunch of people who joined the Navy and they became famous. And this is in 1750. Okay, let's see, my next thing on here is, this is actually kind of like, a downside for cross-dressers. In 1839, in 1844, Rebecca and her daughters is a group of cross-dressing females, and they were destroying road tolls and barriers because they believed it was making their area, like, more poor than what it already was, and they took on the names and identities of women, and this is in Welsh countryside. 1840s is when the asylums started coming around. Oh no. It's like, this is the thing that every transgender and gay person fears. Okay, 1861. This is when civil. Oh, I forgot 1850. 1850 is actually, here's American one. Crow, a woman chief. Her tribe's territory was Wyoming and Montana. And she's known for her war ethics, and she was a female who was a chief, and she had several wives. Talk about feminist. So, next one is 1861. We have a Civil War veteran, and he's from the UN Army, and he was a spy, a nurse, a dispatch carrier, and later is considered the only woman to mustered into the Grand Army of Republic. His male name was Franklin Thomas. Female name was Sarah Emmons. It was a transgender male. Okay, next one. Next one is, well, this is just a little fun fact. 1885, Prince Eddie basically is caught going to transvestite clubs. Okay. Alright, this is something I feel like every transgender should know. Like, there's two people in history I feel every transgender should know. So, like, we're actually hitting the 1900s. I was afraid we weren't, and I tried to go as fast as I could. Harry Benjamin is, like, one person I feel every transgender should know. This one is recorded transgender. This is actually the very first person to go for sex reassignment surgery. This is the very first person in recorded history. It was done by this person I also feel like every transgender should know if they don't need to know the entire history. They need to know these two people. Is Magnus Hirschfeld. I put their name down there. But yeah, like, these two people I feel are very important. Like, this, in 1907, the very first sex reassignment surgery happens. And Harry Benjamin is the very first transgender male to actually go for the surgery. Now Magnus Hirschfeld, very important person in transgender history. He's not transgender, but he's interested in the study of sexuality and identities and shit, and he establishes, what's the name of his university? It's 1919. He establishes the Sexology Foundation, he's one of the founding fathers of it. He also opens up the first Sexology Institute, the sexual science in Berlin, which unfortunately the Nazis closed it, and literally the building was burned to the ground. Everything he studied and found out was destroyed. Like, literally, when the Nazis were starting to take over, like, this was the safest building to be in if you were transgender or gay, because it was an institute, and at the time, Nazis were starting to take over, but they didn't have that much power or control. Like, you were safe in this building, but once Nazis completely took over and stuff, you weren't safe anywhere. So, yeah. So you have this building that actually dedicated research to figuring things out. Like, they actually studied transgenders and gays and stuff. Like, they were trying to figure out, put together the puzzle and stuff. So you have people who are actually trying to physically help people, not just torture them, saying, like, no, you're a boy, you're a boy, you're a girl, you're a girl. So, very person, in my opinion, to the history of transgenders. And I didn't think I was going to get that far. But fun fact, in Nazi time, if you were transgender, you were you would get sent to concentration camps. You were on the death list, and even if you were on the death list, you were on the list to be sterilized. So yeah, fun fact, because like you were considered disabled, you were considered unable to work. So therefore, you were not considered by any means you should be allowed to live. So yeah, there's not a lot on here, which unfortunately, like there is a lot more. And like if you're into transgender history, like really look it up. One of the biggest like transgender movements in America was actually Stonewall. It happened in the it happened in the 18th century. It happened, I think, maybe in the 1950s is when it happened. It might have been 1950s. It could be the 30s. I think it was the 50s that happened. But in the 1900s is when you really start seeing like laws forbidding people to cross dress. Like, cause like by the 1900s, like people are becoming more courage, more spontaneous. Like, especially in the 20s, like people are just like going like, I am this, I am that. Like they were no longer being quiet, and all these laws were popping up, like saying you cannot cross dress or anything, or like it was. So yeah, like transgender is like never has been, has never everyone has never been something like you can just say start popping up here, here, or here. Unfortunately, there was like nothing Asian in this timeline, which there is a culture. I think it's Taiwan. I could be wrong, but I remember it's a small island. It begins with a T, and I think it was Taiwan. But like, they're completely fine with transgenders. Like, it was like they have a surplus of transgender females, and if a family have for a boy, and they want a girl, and like they were raised as a girl. Some of them will accept it, others do not. Some are like, no, I'm a guy. So yeah. Um, there's also like there's actually a specific term that came around because of one transgender. I think it was in China where it happened. And like this family let their son live as a female, and he's really well known. It's a really well known ancient China transgender. In places like Afghanistan and Pakistan, transgenders were really well known back then, back in ancient times too. Like if you were transgender and you want transgender female, you want to marry a male, you had they castrated you and you were legally allowed to marry a male because you were no longer considered a boy. In ancient Rome, it's a lot more harder to say per se, because like they seem to have a mixed view on transgenders. If you were born as an intersex, I feel sorry for hermaphrodites at the time. Like you were left to die, because hermaphrodites were considered a good and bad omen. Like they feared that you were a bad omen, and like to kill a bad omen was considered extremely bad luck and would haunt you the rest of your life. So they would just literally leave the babies out in the open and let nature take care of them. So but while transgenders, I found finding information about transgenders in Rome very hard to come by, because they did have transgenders performing like doing rituals and stuff for the goddesses, for goddess temples and stuff, because it was considered like a man could not do it, a woman could not do it, a goddess would only talk to a transgender female. So it's kind of like, but at the same time, like culture wise, it was up and down in Rome depending what decade it was. Sometimes they accepted it, other times they're just like, no. While they really accepted gays at the time, like their gays were allowed to have the exact same rights. So yeah, like also you have the Amazon women, like the most feminist people I think you can find, who like literally like they are the most feminist. Like they went ahead and like broke every boundary rule that we have been taught that a boy is this, a girl is that. No, they're just like no. So it's like there is information out there. There are rulers. There are famous people who are transgenders in history. Like this is not a phase. This is not a new movement. It's been around. So, like literally, like you're curious, do more information. Like you gotta find the correct terms and stuff, but you never know what you're gonna find, because there's a lot of people I didn't know about, and it's like, oh yes,